2016. The year all hell broke loose.
Bing bing bong bong ding ding.
Donald Trump bragging about the size of his penis.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? They're small. Something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem.
Pokemon go to the polls.
Please clap.
Just like the game Doom 2016, where all hell breaks loose and you have to piss and shit your way through a very pissy and shitty situation. It's a very unusual catchphrase to use in your game, but it came from some really old Doom comic, so they just put them in the games to make it cool, I suppose.
Piss and shit until it is done.
And then in March 2020, we get Doom Eternal, but unlike Doom 2016 where you go to hell and kill all these demons, in Eternal instead you are a tourist that gets lost in Brazil. But did you know there are also two other features that Doom 2016 has that Doom Eternal does not have? Which, of course, I'm talking about the competitive multiplayer mode and the Snap map editor where you can create your own maps and custom games and play them with friends or share them with people online. Doom Eternal, however, did get battle mode, which, you know, is fun when it works, but most of the times it's quite scuffed because the netcode is absolutely terrible. On PC at least, I don't know what it's like on console. But on PC, hit registration and detection is most of the times terrible. But the reason why multiplayer and Snap Map were cut from Doom Eternal is because the developers wanted to focus those resources into making campaign DLC instead. And probably also because most people didn't even touch these modes. Which leads us to Doom Eternal: The Ancient Gods Part 1. And I was excited for this DLC for two reasons. Reason one, Mick Gordon is gone, which means no more Mick Gordon music, which is a big deal, and I was very curious what the new music was going to be like. And two, I just didn't know what the hell you would expect from a campaign DLC, so I was just really curious. All I know is that when I finished Doom Eternal for the first time, I thought back to myself, wow, the Slayergate arenas were probably the most fun parts of this game. I wish the next Doom game was just one big massive Slayergate arena. And that is basically what we got with the Ancient Gods Part 1. And if the DLC campaign itself is just like one big Slayergate, and you have Slayergates within that Slayergate, that's some Slayergateception going on there. It's kind of like The Last of Us Part 2, where at the climax of Ellie's rampage through Seattle, you go back in time 3 days to play from Abby's perspective, and within that 3-day backflash, you also have Abby backflashes within that backflash. Only the only difference here is that Doom Eternal is nothing like that at all, and it's actually fun to play.
Please clap.
Bit of a wild tangent I went off on there, sorry. But I will always go out of my way to poke fun at The Last of Us Part 2 and Jared Leto's Joker.
I can tell you meant that.
Stop shite again! He's never off the air!
Now, at this point, I don't even know if you can call this video a review anymore because The Ancient Gods released 2 or 3 weeks ago, and by the time my slow arse gets this video done, it'll probably be a month old. But just for the sake of clarity, I've played through it multiple times. I've put in 29 hours, and each playthrough has been a nightmare difficulty, so I think I'm more than qualified to share my opinions on it. And all I can say is that it really makes you feel like you're the Doomslayer. 6.5 out of 10. Ha! Got y'all. If you fell for that, come on now. Lol, laughing my fucking ass off. Got you all. So the biggest question going into this DLC for a lot of people, myself included, is what exactly is the soundtrack going to be like without Mick Gordon? It's really impossible to imagine these new Doom games without Mick Gordon. Like, essentially, he is as big of part of these games as the actual gameplay is itself. If you think back to Doom 2016, a lot of what made that game so iconic was Mick Gordon's soundtrack. It was absolutely masterful. So iconic, in fact, that people can immediately recognize tracks like Rip and Tear or BFG Division without ever even playing Doom 2016. The impact was huge and widespread, and with the announcement of Doom Eternal, a lot of people are wondering, how the hell hell is he going to top the Doom 2016 soundtrack? And not only did he top 2016 soundtrack, he just absolutely fucking smashed it. Like, Eternal just destroys it in every level. The music this time around is just absolutely godlike. It's bigger, better, bolder, faster. It's just fucking way better produced. It's insanity. It has so many big set piece banger tracks, and I think one of my personal standout favourites is Cultist Bass. One of the main reasons being that the main guitar riff of the song isn't even a fucking guitar, it's a synthesizer, and it just blows my mind how he made a synthesizer sound like this. And for the longest time I thought that was a guitar riff until I watched a stream one day of Mick Gordon breaking down the music of Eternal and how he put it together, and this track is synthesizer, that is not a guitar. And I mean, I'm no music expert, I've never studied it or created music, but I do listen to a lot of heavy music, and as someone who listens to a lot of heavy music, he really fooled me with this one. I was fully convinced that they were guitars. Also, a funny story, this summer I was working with my dad and I was listening to the Eternal soundtrack on my Bluetooth speaker while we were working, and you know, in the middle of Cultist Bass where the synths get really like high, they're like wow, 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 right, that part, he says to me, "Butch, why are you listening to Formula 1 cars?" And now I can't unhear Formula 1 cars every time I get to that part of the song. So with Mick Gordon and id Software parting ways, and I'm using the term parting ways because I don't know exactly how things happened, but it's the most kind of, general and neutral way I can put it. With them parting ways, it left a lot of people wondering, how can this modern Doom franchise exist without Mick Gordon? Which is a very fair concern. I myself had the same concerns. I felt like these games just could not exist without his music. And I'm happy to say that I was wrong. These games absolutely can continue to exist without Mick. And that's no disrespect to him. His work is incredible. It was very influential. And I think a large part of the success of these games are definitely owed to his soundtrack. But as a fan of these games, I'm happy that this DLC proved that the game does not die with Mick and that they can continue to make more and still produce great music. Different, but still great. And this credit goes out to both composers of this DLC, David Levy and Andrew Hulshult. They have definitely earned their place, and the thing I like about the Ancient Gods music is that they did not try to be Mick, they just tried to be Doom, and they fucking killed it in my opinion. It's just a more simple take on Doom's music compared to Mick's very over-the-top, overproduced music, and it's really groovy and genty. Now, admittedly, I was not aware of David Levy's work prior to this project, but now I am definitely a fan. And in fact, my favourite track from this DLC is actually produced by David. I'm not sure of the official name of the song, but it's the music that plays during heavy fighting on the UAC Atlantica mission. It really reminds me of a lot of music that I actually listen to. However, I was aware of who Andrew Hulshult is from some of his work on Quake Champions, and of course his absolutely masterful soundtrack that he composed for Dusk. And although it might be a topic for another video in the future, I just want to quickly say that Dusk is fucking amazing, and if you've never played it and you like shooters, you really need to play it, and the soundtrack is just incredible. And pick up Ultra Kill while you're at it, because Ultra Kill is absolute insanity. It's my indie game of the year, and if a pilot from Titanfall and Dante from Devil May Cry had a child, it would be John Ultra Kill. And circling back to Andrew Hulshult, once I heard that he was being brought into the project, I knew that the DLC soundtrack was in good hands, and all you have to do is play through the Blood Swamps mission of the DLC for all the proof you need. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like the music for the DLC is some kind of hot topic. I think it's kind of unanimously agreed upon that it's quite good and people really like it. So I'm not really saying anything different here, it's just one more voice in the crowd that's saying, yes, the music is pretty good. And that concludes part 1 of my Doom Eternal The Ancient Gods Part 1 review. If you'd like to hear my Part 2 review of The Ancient Gods Part 1, then tune in for Part 2 coming soon. ha! Gotcha again! There is no part 2. It's all gonna be done in this one video. It's so long. I want it to end. So let's talk about gameplay, and you guessed it, it's more Doom Eternal, but this time around you start off the DLC with everything unlocked. You have all the weapon mods, you have all the suit abilities, you got everything from the get-go. But because you have everything from the get-go, it also means that you are prepared to deal with everything from the get-go, so this game just tosses everything at you right away. Ancient Gods does not build you up to it, it doesn't whisper sweet nothings in your ear just to get you all ready, it just fucking flat out tosses you into the deep end and you have to fight your way out. You have to piss and shit your way through it. Are you ready to piss and shit? So I completed my first playthrough of this DLC on Nightmare difficulty, and even though for the past few weeks I have been playing Doom Eternal itself on Nightmare exclusively and getting through the game quite comfortably on Nightmare as I was preparing for the Ultra Nightmare run, I have to say that the DLC stressed the absolute fuck out of me. It was tough, it was grueling, I was exhausted afterwards, and I even tweeted out that I don't think I would ever go through that DLC again on Nightmare. But because I'm a masochist, I tried it again on Nightmare, and it actually isn't that bad once you get to learn the fights, and I'm much better. I can get through the DLC quite comfortably now. But my first playthrough did take me around, I would say 6-ish hours, and now I can comfortably get through it in about 2.5 to 3 hours. But I do think regardless of your skill level with the game and whatever difficulty you're most comfortable playing at, that this DLC will be a challenge your first playthrough. Second playthrough, third playthrough will get much easier because you're more accustomed to the fights and you got the mechanics ingrained in your brain at this stage. But first time playthrough, woo, it's a toughie. I would call it the Dark Souls of first person shooters, but Lawbreakers already exists. Or should I say it used to exist. But unlike Dark Souls where you see the "you died" screen numerous times, Lawbreakers just saw that once and never came back.
But at the end of the day, I think we've kind of made the Dark Souls of competitive first-person shooters.
Oh, really?
Now that video right there is some old Butchmiss lore, so smash that motherfucking like button if you're a day one. Hell yeah. Now the Ancient Gods is interesting because there are actually two ways to purchase it. If you already own Doom Eternal, you can purchase it as just a DLC add-on, but if you don't own Doom Eternal, you can still buy it standalone to experience the Ancient Gods DLC, and it comes with the battle mode packaged in. This is interesting to me because players can jump right into the Ancient Gods as their first experience with Doom Eternal. They don't have to play the main game, and it's very interesting because it's such a different pace compared to the main game. Like, it's demanding, very demanding. And I feel like the first game always has this metaphor of, you know, working your way up the ranks of of a martial art until you become a black belt. Whereas, you know, the Ancient Gods is expecting you to already be that black belt, and it just tosses so many tough fights at you. So while you can purchase the Ancient Gods without ever playing Doom Eternal, I wouldn't actually recommend it because the step up in difficulty and learning curve, like, you're already at the skill ceiling at this point. I think you would be better off playing the main game first before touching this DLC. But then again, maybe you are an absolute fucking psycho, so go ahead and buy the DLC and play that one first, you know, go have fun. Now, the actual contents of the campaign itself, I always find this part difficult to talk about because I don't want to spoil it, but on the other hand, you kind of have to spoil some things. But I think this time I'm going to choose not to say anything about kind of the story and just say that there are 3 different missions. You have UAC Atlantica, you have the Blood Swamps, and then you have the Return to Urdek. Each mission will probably last you around 2 hours each, give or take. Of course, there are new collectibles and there are also new Slayer gates to do. There's also new runes to unlock, which are more support role runes, but they don't really seem to impact gameplay too much. There's a couple of new enemy encounters in the games, and some of them are just holy woo! What I will say, however, is that a lot of complaints that Doom Eternal got from players that are not the hardcore Doom fan base were complaints about the Marauder, complaints about platforming, complaints about tentacles. And rather than complying with these people's complaints, id Software with this DLC actually doubled down on all of them. Not only are there more Marauders, there are harder Marauder encounters, there is more platforming, there is a fuckload of tentacles. And I have to say that that is quite brave of the developers. Like, they know who their audience is and they're going to cater to their audience first, then rather concede to people who aren't particularly like the hardcore fans. It's not quite as brave as Greg Miller saying that he hates PC gaming and disabling the comments, and one day later doing a sponsored PC giveaway because he's a shill. But it's almost as brave as that. But id Software kind of remind me of From Software in ways in which that they have a vision for what their game is and they know what their fans want, and they're not going to change that for anyone. But overall, the Ancient Gods is a really solid DLC and a great expansion for Doom Eternal. It even continues the same storyline and it's leading on to the next DLC with a big cliffhanger. The DLC is also €20 for part 1, but if you buy the season pass, which is €30, you will also get Ancient Gods part 2 whenever the hell that releases, so you're saving yourself €10 there. And like I said earlier, battle mode also comes with it, and earlier on in the video I did give some quick opinions on that. It wouldn't be the main selling point, but hey, it's there and, you know, try it out. Maybe you'll have fun with it. I have fun with it when it works. It doesn't always work, but when it works, it's a lot of fun. And I still don't know if this video counts as a conventional review, and I hate review scores, so all I can say is that this DLC gets a high recommendation from me. If you're a fan of first-person shooters, then you owe it to yourself to try this out, and if you're a Doom Eternal fan but have not tried this DLC, then what the fuck are you waiting around for? This has some of the best encounters in the entire new Doom series. And I'm not just saying that, this DLC has a lot of Doom 2016 vibes, but with Doom Eternal's amazing gameplay, and like, I can't think of a more perfect mashup than that. It's almost as perfect as a spirit-buffed Baron of Hell. Hang on a second. Baron of Hell. Baron of Hell. Baron of Hell. Holy shit. It all makes sense now. Doom came out in 2016 so they could help Trump win. And now, Doom Guy wants the recount. So MAGA 2020 can happen again? No!